So as you get settled onto the floor, before I ask half of you to stand up. Now, remember, it's going to be observing. It's really hard to observe when you're lying on your back looking at the ceiling. So, but when I ask you this question, what is best ATM practice for you? What does it feel like? How do you start to answer it? And is it just a feeling thing? Or is it more? As I said earlier, I have every confidence that each one of you knows what it is to fully engage in the movement. You've all tasted it, or thought it, or sensed it. You can't, that seems to be a dead zone there. That seems to be a dead zone up there. Oh, you could. Thank you for saying something. What? Beautiful. Hello. It's just you and me, kid. Okay, so could some of you stay lying on the floor, and could some of you please sit up or stand up? You're free to wander around, and those of you who remain lying on the floor, you'll do a very short awareness through movement lesson, and then we'll swap over, and then you'll get to watch your colleagues in return. Those of you who are lying on the floor, could you please bend your legs, stand your feet. And for the next few moments, please find out which of your 5 limbs is it easier to lift. Yes, you have 5 limbs. I'm considering your head attached to your neck as the 5th limb. So please inquire, which of your 5 limbs are the lightest to lift? After you've been doing that for a little while, notice whether you start to make different choices about how you position your limbs relative to your tongue. And you might start to discover that your fifth limb, the head and the neck, needs some special conditions in order to even contemplate lifting that possibility. You might need to put something underneath the head or not. You might need to remove something from underneath. And the inquiry still remains the same. Which of the five limbs is the lightest to lift? And that might have nothing to do with the actual mass of the limb that you're lifting. It might have everything to do with how you're going about doing it. So the how is what's important. Stop a moment and pause. What did you discover? What did you find? Let's use the other four-letter F word. What did you find? Which limb was the lightest? And was that constant, or did it change over time because of the variations that we studied? Is bend both of your legs, stand your feet on the floor. Lift your pelvis off the floor and put it back down again. Do that many times. Pay attention to how you organize your legs, your feet, your spine, your torso, to enable the pelvis to go forward. Because those two directions are equivalent. Taking your pelvis away from the floor, lifting it from the floor, is equivalent to taking your pelvis forward of yourself in a forwards direction. Now, for some of you, just thinking in those two different ways could produce two very different experiences in how your perception of how your pelvis lifts. Some of you might find that thinking of taking the pelvis forward produces quite a different sense of the movement compared to lifting your pelvis from the floor. As you lift the pelvis, does your torso move in one piece, or is your torso articulated in the spine? Yes. As you lift the pelvis, do each of the vertebrae of your spine lift separately, or do they move in clumps? Is that okay? Next time the pelvis is on the floor, stop lift your forefeet from the floor so that only your heels are making contact. That's called lifting your pelvis off the floor. That's good. Okay. So the forefeet are off the floor, and now with the forefeet off the floor, go ahead and lift and lower your pelvis. Notice if this has a different effect. Because as I was walking around, I noticed that some of you had your forefeet from the floor. So I thought, well, let's make a variation out of this. And now stop the next time your pelvis is. Replace the forefeet on the floor. And could you lift the heels from the floor and lift the pelvis? No one is making variation, but I thought it'd be nice to feel the difference. And you feel what's good? Yeah. Notice how some of you reposition your feet in order to lift your pelvis when it's only the forefoot that's in contact. Now, some of you might prefer that more than the other. Now, next time your pelvis is down, could you have the whole sole of the foot, including all 5 toes, in contact with the floor? And once again, lift and lower your pelvis. So take your pelvis forward. Notice as the pelvis begins to move forward, does the pressure in your heels increase? Does the pressure underneath the forefoot increase? Is it the same on both sides? And that's enough. So stop. Pause again. And pay attention to what these movements have created in you, the sense of yourself that you have after doing those movements that you've done. One more time. Bend your legs, stand your feet. How did you get there? Do you have a memory of how you just did that? Lengthen out your legs again and be aware of how you get there. Bend the legs, stand your feet. Which leg did you bend first? What happened with the pelvis? What happened with the head? Do that a few times. Some of you are pelvis holders. In other words, you don't let your pelvis move as you bend your legs. And some of you are pelvis rockers. You let your pelvis move. Try both ways. Try to stop the pelvis from moving as you bend up your legs. And then, when you've tasted that a few times, let the pelvis rock. And you might notice that something happens differently in your breathing. I'm not saying that the difference is either good or bad, it's just different. The next time you have your feet bent, sorry, your legs bent and your feet standing, go ahead and lift your pelvis, move it forward. And find a height of the pelvis from the floor that is easy to maintain. You could stay there for quite a long time and you wouldn't tire. Right? Keeping the pelvis forward like this, lift one foot from the floor. Do that several times. Notice, where does your pelvis go? Now it's tempting. You hear me say lift the foot, and you want to just lift the foot. What's involved in finding out how you do it? Does your torso start to lean on the floor differently as you raise that foot from the floor? Okay. Replace the foot. Now lift and lower the other leg several times. Yeah, that's the constant. Pelvis stays off the floor. And some of you might realize why you chose the leg you chose to lift first. So what do you need to do differently with this leg when you go to lift this leg to make it feel as easy or as pleasant as the first leg? That's assuming that the first leg was pleasant and easy, right? Yeah. Leave both feet on the floor. Replace the pelvis on the floor. Pause just a few moments in that position. And I'll alternate. Lift one leg, put it down. Lift the other leg, put it down. No, pelvis is on the floor. What's different when the pelvis is on the floor? Now replace the feet, lift the pelvis to a distance that you can sustain. And now alternate lifting the feet. Notice that there's less of you in contact with the ground when the pelvis is lifted. And that there's a certain part of yourself that you're resting on predominantly. Could be the middle of the back, could be between the shoulders, could be near the neck region, depending on how high you lift the pelvis. And that every time you lift the leg, you have to shift right on that place that you're resting. Let that be. Pause for a moment. Yeah. As you're lying there, remember the place that you were leaning on when you had your pelvis lifted. Can you discern where is that place? That place is going to be your pivot point, your pivot point. You know, like when you make a circle with a compass, one needle of the compass is the pivot, and then the rest of the compass draws a circle. Well, that place that you were leaning on is going to be the pivot point. Please bend your legs, stand your feet. Lift your pelvis in the air until you feel yourself leaning on that place you just identified. And now start to bring the right foot closer to the left and the right leg closer to the left. Put it down. And then take the left foot away from the right and put it down. And then bring the right leg closer to the left and put it down. And then the left leg further from the right and put it down. And then continue like that in a very crab-like fashion to walk around yourself. To move your pelvis around that pivot point where you're leaning on the floor. And at some point, you need to lift an arm and put it down, and lift the other arm and put it down. And at some point, you need to lift your head and reposition that too, or else there'll be some very funny images happening on the floor. So when do you choose to reposition the arm? How likely can you do that? When do you choose to reposition the head? How likely can you do it? Continue on around until you've made a full circle. And then once you've made a full circle, lower the pelvis and stop for a moment. Pay attention to what you do with your pelvis as you walk the feet around like this. Do you try to keep your pelvis level? In other words, the two hip bones the same distance from the floor? Or do you let the two hip bones vary their height from the floor? Maybe one gets higher and then the other gets higher. When you've done a full circle, just simply stop and rest. And if you need to rest before you've done a complete circle, that's fine too, you do that. As you've heard, these movements have this kind of afterglow, after image. You have a sense of something being different in yourself. And those differences could be quite subtle, and if you weren't paying attention, you wouldn't even notice them. But subtle doesn't mean not important. Please bend your legs again, stand at feet. Interlace your fingers and put your hands behind your head. Simultaneously, lift your pelvis and your head from the floor to a comfortable height. So now the head is going forward and the pelvis is going forward. Do that several times. And find a distance for the head and the pelvis to be forward that you can sustain. And alternate. Lift the right foot and the right leg, take it across so that it touches the left leg, and then bring it back. Lift the left leg, take it across so that it touches the right leg, and bring it back. So that it just touches the side, yes? Knee to knee, foot to foot, ankle back. And go backwards and forwards like that. Right foot to the right, left foot to right foot, right knee to left knee to right knee. And always it's lift, foot down, lift, foot down, lift, replace, lift, replace. Notice, which of those two directions do you prefer? Do you prefer bringing the right leg across to the left, or do you prefer bringing the left leg across to the left? Whichever of those two directions you prefer, could you now continue and walk around yourself in a circle using that same pattern? Now there's even less of you in contact with the floor with the head lifted, so notice what it feels like to walk, to move your pelvis around that point that you're leaning on. And you can always put your pelvis down, have a little bit of a break. If you catch yourself not breathing, that will be a great way to reset your breathing and then start again with breathing happening. When you've had enough, you can lower your pelvis down and pause completely. And reflect for a few moments. Did your breathing change as you were walking around yourself? To finish off with, please bend both of your legs again. And like you did at the very beginning of the lesson, please find out which of your 5 limbs is the lightest for you. Remember, we're considering your head and your neck as limb number 5. Are you better able to discern a difference? For some of you, maybe all 5 limbs are now lighter than they even were before. It could be for some of you it's the opposite, or heavier. No. What is it that you can think? Okay, that's enough. Please roll to one side, come up to standing. Walk around a little bit. You think that's like a trivial thing. Let's just walk around a little bit. But how do you stay present to yourself as you're walking around, sensing what's new, sensing what's the same, both in yourself and in your perception of it, and in your perception of the other people walking around you? So let's step there. Those of you who have been observing, please take this opportunity to lie down and just let yourself settle in. And those of you that just did the lesson, remember the invitation was to engage in the lesson with what you consider your best practice. So were there moments in the lesson that you realized that's exactly where you were? And moments in the lesson that you realized, oh, I'm a little bit off target. Did you recognize that? Those of you who are lying on the floor, if you're comfortable lying with your legs long, lie with your legs long. If you're comfortable with your legs bent, lie with your legs bent. And a few times, lift your head from the floor and put it down. And use this movement to sense within you moves in order to lift it. Because your head needs to be attached to your neck. So at the smallest, your neck needs to be. What else? And what could you do to make the lifting of your head even lighter? And then lighter still. And that is a very open invitation. change what you're doing with your arms. You could change what you're doing with the legs. So long as you remain more or less in this orientation, in other words, with the front of your body towards the ceiling, you can experiment with whatever you like with. Experiment with whatever you want. You're finding out, ooh, there's that death word again. You're finding out what you can do to make the lifting of the head light. It doesn't really matter your head once throughout this whole lesson. It doesn't matter whether the back of your head actually leaves the floor or goes forward. It doesn't have to. As long as you're making the inquiry in some fashion or other. Look at that. Bend your legs and put the soles of your feet together so that they're touching. And usually, for that to happen, the knees have to be quite apart. But there's a difference between the knees being apart and the leg hanging. I'm asking you to let the legs hang, but do have the soft feet together. Leave the right foot where it is, and could you lift the left leg from the ground just a little bit, hit the shape of the leg that you already have. That's it. And you'll feel that the sole of the foot slides along the sole of the foot and then comes back again. Do that with times. Please do feel free to adjust the position of your heel, your buttocks. Closer, over. The position of the heels from the oh yeah. So you're lifting and lowering your left leg, maintaining the shape of the so that the foot slide against the other foot. Towards the ceiling. That's it. And it's the same intention now on the other side. Now, the inclination of your leg could change a little bit. It could, in terms of your trunk, it could be a slightly greater angle or lesser angle when you lift it. That's fine. But more or less, the shape of your leg remains the same. Now, please alternate. Lift the right leg, put it down, the left leg, put it down, and pay attention to what's happening in your pelvis. Are you a pelvis rocker or are you a pelvis stabilizer? And are you versatile and can do both? Think about it. And in everyday life, sometimes stabilizing the pelvis is a good idea, and sometimes moving the pelvis is a good idea. So not having one hard and fast rule is important. We must not have to be always the same. Let that be clear somewhere. So the notion of having to be the same, I must do it like this, or it's just not me, it's not right. That can be a big thing. We can get really stuck in that. We can end up feeling good about ourselves if we succeed, or we could end up feeling bad about ourselves when we don't meet our own set of standards. So having a repertoire of possibilities. I do. Please bend your legs, keep the soles of your feet together. Have the knees apart, but don't let the legs hang. And now would you please lift both feet from the floor. And of course, you must do that as soon as I say it. And take as much time as you like. How do you make this intention realizable without holding your breath? The next time you go to lift your legs, let the heels separate. Notice, does that make it better, worse, or more or less the same? And now do the opposite. As you go to lift your legs, keep the heels touching, but let the forefeet separate. And it's the same three set of questions. Does it make it better? In other words, lighter, easier? Does it make it worse, heavier, more difficult? Or more or less the same? Now keep the soles of the feet completely together. Same three questions. Choose the option that works the best for you at this point in time. And that's enough. Pause. Now this whole notion of something being better or feeling better, is it just a physical thing? Might it have an emotional component to it? Might it also have a social, mental component, that you have an idea in your mind that, no, it's better if it's like this? It's not a simple thing, determining whether something is better or worse or the same. It's not strictly physical. It's not strictly mental. It's not strictly emotional. Please interlace your fingers and place your hands on the floor above your head. And if that's not possible for you to do, maybe get some blankets or pillows or whatever so that you can rest your hands on the blanket. You can bring the floor up to you. And don't have your hands too close to your head. Have your hands far enough away from the top of your head so the arms make a kind of diamond shape or a hoop shape, whichever you prefer, angles or arms. And please begin to lift both of your hands from the floor, keeping this shape of your arm. And then put them down again. Do that several times. Find out, how do you lift the arms? Pay attention to what other parts of you move to lift the arms. One thing you could notice is, as you take the arms forward, which parts of you go backward? As the arms lose their contact with the floor, which other parts of you increase their contact with the floor? The next time you go to lift your arms, could you intentionally increase the amount of contact at the lower ribs at the back, around the waistline area, have with the floor? So now you're doing something very intentional, intentionally moving yourself in such a way that the lower ribs make contact with the floor as the arms begin to lift, and feel the effect of that. Do the arms feel lighter or heavier or more or less the same when you press those lower ribs in? Great. Let that be, please. Pause. Now, as you're lying there, can you remember? How did you interlace your fingers? Which index finger was on top? Which thumb was on top? Was the right thumb on top of the left, or was the left thumb on top of the right? Interlace your fingers again, but do it in the opposite way. Place your hands on the floor above your head. Bend your legs, put the soles of your feet together. And so now your upper limbs are more or less in that same kind of diamond or hoop shape that your legs are in. So here's the intention. Simultaneously lift the hands and the feet from the floor, keeping the shape of the limbs. So your elbows can change their inclination a little bit. Your knees can change their inclination a little bit. But the shape stays more or less the same. Lifting simultaneously. That means the same time. And then once you have a sense that it's simultaneous, as the two sets of limbs go forwards, which parts of yourself press into the floor backwards. And you might have discovered earlier that by intentionally pressing something backwards, it facilitates the forwards motion. So please explore that a little bit with yourself. What could you press backwards? The middle of the chest, the lower back, the lower ribs. And funnily enough, when you start to think like that, for some of you, your limbs automatically lift simultaneously without you having to think in a different area. Can you sense that? Suddenly, the two things become one because you're thinking of the middle of this. Continue doing what you're doing. You can pause whenever you need to pause. And every time you lift the arms, also lift the head with the arms. Now, in terms of timing, it's still simultaneous. Arms and the legs go together. But there's also the factor of speed. Once you get the hang of this, you can continue doing it slowly if you wish. But once you sense, I have the coordination, you now have a choice. You could lift quite fast. You could lift fast up and lower slowly down. Or you could lift fast up and lower fast. Or you could lift slowly and lower fast. So find a way of doing it that for this moment in time suits you. Eventually, you'll be able to do all three equally well, but for the moment, which suits you best? Fast up, fast down, fast up, slow down, slow up, fast. And it doesn't matter which of the three options you choose, is it possible to keep your throat open so that air can get in and out? Not a bad idea. You'll survive the lesson that way. All right, that's enough, please. Stop. Pause. Notice what sensations and feelings and thoughts remain having done those movements. Like there's a carryover, especially if you're paying attention to yourself, there's a carryover. And there might be some parts of you that you experience in ways that you sometimes don't experience. Now let's return to the very first movement that you did. Please lift and lower your head. And first of all, notice you do it differently at the outset without having to think about it very much. at all? And second of all, do you have a better idea of what you might do to make the lifting of the head lighter and lighter still? And what you do with your legs and your arms is open to you. And I'm not asking you to go into that same configuration as you were doing throughout the lesson, but you might find things to do with your arms and your legs that actually you sense in yourself, wow, when I do this, the head gets really light. Let that be, pause. And when you're ready, roll to one side and come up to standing. And keep tracking your sense of yourself, how you experience yourself as you move into standing, and then as you're standing, because there might be some new perception that's there that you usually don't have. It's not there. And that new sensation, that new perception is a testament that you can be different. That you can reform yourself gently over time without insisting. Walk a little bit and feel what it's like. And those of you who have just done the lesson, reflect for a moment. Best practice. Were there moments? When did you stop? When did you start? When were you engaged? When were you distant? And just before we head off to lunch, we'll have lunch at 1/4 past or so. Could you just into small little groupings, whatever you like, and discuss with each other once again, what did you see? But now you have also an insider perspective. What did you experience? When were you in? When were you out? When were you engaged? Just chat a little bit. And then we'll break for lunch at 1/4 past, so about 20